Basic idea with this video is that I want to convey different strategies for picking up nuts, whether that's acorns, walnuts, hickories, pecans, all those sorts of things. There's a lot of different strategies. Each nut is a little bit different, and they're out there falling right now. If you're watching this video around the time that I upload it, this is peak nut season here on the East Coast of the Midwest. I've got specific videos on specific species planned, and I've been recording a lot of clips, but things are busy right now, and I don't know when I'll be able to edit and post. So in the meantime, if you want to just pick some nuts up, here are several ways that I like to do it. It's getting dark, so I don't know how well you're going to be able to tell what's going on in this video, but I'm picking up acorns from this northern red oak tree behind me here. This tree is arguably not in very good health. It has lost a significant amount of wood. There's a lot of dead wood on this tree, dead and dying. You can see this one on the right is dead, this one on the left is dying, but this tree is putting out a bumper crop of red oak acorns. This is what the acorns typically look like. They're on the larger side, and there's a lot I want to say about this. I think we're going to focus to talking about actually gathering. The processing of the acorns is probably going to have to be a separate clip, because there's so much involved. But if you're out here trying to pick up acorns, there's a few things you want to know. First of all, I don't know if you can tell, I have raked the acorns into these windrows. You can see that right there is where it stops. I didn't rake past that point, but from there back, I raked everything up into these windrows so that it's very easy to come in through here and just pick up. I don't have to move around a lot. I can sit here for a few minutes and pick up everything in front of me without having to move. Okay, so like I showed, the first way you can do it is to just pick the acorns up by hand, and this is much easier if you can get the acorns into windrows, either with a rake or a leaf blower or something like that. The other thing you can do, instead of picking them up by hand, is you can just take everything in that windrow and dump it into a bucket of water or some sort of container filled with water, mix it around a little bit, and the idea is that leaves, sticks, caps, acorns that are duds, they're not filled, they have insect damage, most of that stuff should float. What sinks should mostly just be the good, viable acorns. Now, there's going to be some trash in there you've got to sort through and filter out, but for the most part, this is going to sort the acorns for you just by using the water. And so what I'll do next is I'll take this bucket of water and acorns, dump it through a screen, which I'm just using this little crate as a screen. Note that I'm getting sopping wet. Certainly there's ways to probably do this and have less splashing going on, but it's just a messy process for me. I don't mind it. It was pretty warm that day. Once they're all in this crate, I just have to go through and pick out any caps, rocks, sticks, leaves, any little bits that are remaining. And these acorns are now really wet, so if I'm going to use these for food, I've got to get them dried off pretty fast. If I'm going to plant them, it's totally fine that they're wet. I find this to be definitely a little bit faster than picking them up by hand. This is the method I mostly like to use for acorns. They also make these little roller collectors called nut wizards, which I'm going to show you for black walnuts. They make different sizes that can work for acorns, although I find that the roller collectors for acorns pick up a lot of other debris. So this is that roller tool. It works really well for black walnuts. It's called a nut wizard. There's different brands. The one that I get is called the nut wizard. I think this is hands down the easiest way to pick up black walnuts and anything that's a similar size. So really large acorns, hickory nuts, those sorts of things can be picked up with the nut wizard with ease. There's no bending over. It has this nice little attachment for a bucket, so you can empty them into a bucket. Show that here in 1 minute. You can also certainly pick these up by hand. And as I mentioned before, if you want more detail about any of these species, like for example, getting the husk off of the black walnut, I've got a video on that that's in the works. It'll be coming out soon, but there's lots of other great content here on YouTube you can check out in the meantime. Let me know if you'd like a recommendation for some other folks' videos. And here is that little thing that goes on a bucket. This is how you empty them. Super easy. So that's walnuts and acorns. The hickories and the pecans can be a little bit more challenging, sometimes a little bit easier. It really depends on the species of hickory that we're dealing with. So like I talked about in my video about the yellow bud or bitternut hickory, those nuts are too small for the roller that I use. You could try other sized rollers. Right now I'm finding it best to just rake them up and pick them up by hand, but there's other methods to explore. So then the other species, like the mocker nut we're seeing here, if they fall with the husk on, you can use the roller. They fit very well. Whereas if they fall with the husk off, which they will sometimes do, they'll sometimes separate from the husk as they fall or after they hit the ground, then the nut is too small for the roller, as you can see here. So then I resort to just picking them up by hand. But those are some of my tips and tricks for picking up nuts. I'll try to make follow-up videos for processing nuts, getting off all the husk for the different species, so forth and so on. Another thing I should mention that's really important is to do quality assessment of the nuts as you're gathering them. You don't want to pick up a bunch of nuts, take them home, and then find out that 90% of them are moldy or duds, not filled all the way, etc. Now, there are a lot of ways to evaluate the quality of the nut. I find the best way is to just smash a few open and examine them. You're looking for mold, you're looking for insects, you're looking to make sure that the nut is filled all the way. If it's not filled, there will just be airspace inside of the shell. If you've got specific questions on that, let me know. I got some pictures here you can look at for examples. Over time, you'll start to develop your own foraging intuition. You'll be able to look at a nut at a glance and say, probably good, probably bad. You'll be able to pick it up, feel the weight of the nut, and kind of get an idea. But it's always good to check yourself and smash a few just to see what they look like inside. That's the best way to tell for sure what's going on.